just a bit of a special thing today. Yeah. Okay. And my name is Kathy Fisher, and my sisters are here today too, Karen Thomas.
Hello.
You don't have to clap.
Yeah, you do. Clap for Karen. And Chris Keys.
Hi.
So I just want to take just a few minutes just to say a few things about Fred. So we are here today because we loved our Uncle Fred, and we are honored to be here to take care of his affairs since he passed away on October 24th. Alfred Eric Biederman, or Uncle Fred as we knew him, came into the world on February 11, 1927. He was born in Manhattan to Swiss parents, Alfred and Martha, the first of two children. The family eventually made their way to California and stopped when they got to Glendale. Fred came into our lives when he married our Aunt Dorothy, who was the sister of our dad, Bob Thomas. Dorothy and our dad were born and raised in South Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dorothy also made her way to California, and she and Fred met here in Glendale. Fred had a younger brother, Roy, and both of them followed similar paths in life. They both attended USC and obtained engineering degrees. Both served our country and were veterans. Together, they ran A. Biederman, Inc., an aircraft instrument company that their father began in 1933. This highly successful family company worked with many world-renowned aviation pioneers, including Howard Hughes, Amelia Earhart, and General Jimmy Doolittle. Fred, with his mere photographic memory, shared with us many interesting memories of his working years at A. Biederman. One thing he never mentioned, but I found out from a friend of his, is that he was involved with a spy plane called the SR-71. He never even mentioned that little tidbit. Speaking of Fred's memory, he always blew me away when he'd start a sentence with words like, in 1957 on a Tuesday at 4:30. And he wasn't kidding. He remembered accurately the date and time of most events. As a result, listening to him talk about his and Dorothy's life together was something very detailed. They never had children and enjoyed the freedom that came with that. They were world travelers and enjoyed hosting parties. They both golfed and were in a car club for many years. Dorothy faithfully attended her South Milwaukee High School class reunions, which brought them to the Midwest regularly, and so we got to see them much more often in their later years. They always flew to Minneapolis and started the trip by visiting those in our family who lived in the Twin Cities. Fred and Dorothy also owned many houses throughout their 66-year marriage. I think that Dorothy loved buying them, and Fred got stuck with maintaining them. After they moved from their last house, which was in Apple Valley, California, it was back to Glendale and to Shoal Canyon Estates. They returned home to the place Fred grew up. It was during this time that Dorothy's memory started to fail, and ultimately she moved to a memory care facility. Fred was the ever-devoted husband, and he visited her every day at her residence, that is, unless he was fishing. His family had a cabin in June Lake in the High Sierras, and Fred loved to fish there. We're so happy that this year he went fishing almost monthly there. His good friend Vince would drive from the Sacramento area to meet him there, and they'd spend sometimes 10 days together there. And speaking of driving, he drove like a bat out of hell. The first time we visited him and Dorothy after they'd returned to Glendale, we would caravan places and I could not keep up with the guy on the freeways. He loved showing us around California and was our gracious host as we drove up and down the coast, visiting places they'd lived. We even drove to Santa Clarita, where our family had visited them when I was in my teens. Since Fred's death, I've spoken to a number of his friends and people he did business with. He was beloved, from his travel agents to the secretary at his accountants, from old customers of A. Biederman's to former co-workers. One man I talked to who was a customer of his back in the day commented to me after I told him Fred had died, and with such feeling, "I just loved that man. He was a bright light and he will be missed." So if anybody else would like to come up and speak or share a memory, that's great. If not, that's fine too. And we would like to invite you to apartment 219 from about 1 o'clock to about 2 o'clock. We have everything in the apartment for people to look through and take and share and pass on. So please come. You forgot to clap.